Simon. She's going to talk to us about Hope for International, Kids International. And she's been primarily in Uganda and Africa, but she's got some wealth of experience to talk to us about. So this is going to be an interchange, okay? So feel free to do that.
Yeah. And feel free to stop me if you have any questions, or we can do some questions afterwards. So.
Come on up so you can get in the picture here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Angie, for coming.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you all for joining us here today for Earth Day. And again, my name is Angie Simon. I'm with Hope4Kids International. We are a Christian 501c3 charity based here in Phoenix, right off of I-17 and Carefree Highway. And last year, we celebrated our 50 years in ministry. Our founder, Tom Egum, is still super involved with our ministry. He got started smuggling Bibles into the Soviet Union during, Big Brother, during the Cold War. He made like 8 or 9 successful attempts. He got arrested, thrown in jail, strip searched. They took away his visa. They kicked him out of the country. And instead of sitting on the sidelines, he started smuggling in aid and other materials into communist, China and Vietnam. So that's how we got our start. If you're not too familiar with Hope4Kids, we have been helping children and families that are affected by extreme poverty around the world since 1973. And we do this by, we sponsor about 3,000 AIDS orphans and vulnerable children around the world. We're involved in a lot of community projects where we're building churches and medical clinics and farming projects and schools, anything from a nursery school all the way up to a Christian secondary school. But what I'm really going to talk to you here today is about water. And water is our first line of defense when we're going into these remote villages around the world that need our help. And over the last 15 years or so, we just finished drilling our 1,011, or I should say 1,109 borehole this week. So 1,109 wells, and they're all drilled by machine, and licensed drillers and everything like that. But these wells are providing hope and healing for these communities for at least 30 to 50 years. They're engineered literally to last 30 to 50 years. Most of our work, or I should say 97% of all those wells that we've drilled, are in Uganda. And Uganda is in East Africa. It is the number 3rd country in the world for the least access to clean, safe water. It's rated number 1 in the world for the dirtiest quality of water they have to drink. Uganda is tied with Niger as the youngest population on the planet. So you can imagine 24 million children in Uganda have the dirtiest quality of water that they have to drink, and the least access, one of the least access to water. And so the way, we all know, like if you can think about the ways that people suffer from not having access to clean, safe water, you might think of, like dysentery, right? From waterborne diseases, from drinking the dirty water, or maybe even dehydration from not having access to a lot of water. But really how these children are suffering is like an iceberg, where dysentery, the waterborne diseases, and dehydration is the part that's sticking out. But fetching water is a domestic chore. And so the children, mostly girls, are the ones that are really affected. And I've been to Uganda more than 50 times. I love the country. The country is filled with some of the most amazing people on the planet. Girls are They're very smart. They're very clever. They're resilient. They're strong. And they're survivors. And those girls, like I said, are tasked with fetching water. They're trekking several kilometers, a mile to 2 miles, each way to a dirty, open pit that they share with animals. Cows, poisonous snakes, frogs, you name it. And those are seasonal open pits, open ponds. So during the dry season, those dry up and they have to trek even greater distances. And so when these girls are gone out in the morning and they're trekking, they're bringing back those yellow, you've seen those yellow containers, those are called jerry cans. And when those are filled with water, that's 40 pounds. So you can imagine now carrying up to 40 pounds back. By the time they've reached home, school's already started. So if they're lucky, they head on to school, so they've already missed a lot of lessons. We were talking this morning about malaria. Malaria's, besides dysentery, malaria is the #1 killer in East Africa. But when are the mosquitoes out? In the evening, in the morning, when the girls are out trekking for water. So they're going to those dirty ponds when all the mosquitoes are out. So if they're not getting dysentery or typhoid or cholera, they're getting malaria from going to those dirty ponds. But one of the things that's, it's just way bigger than that, way bigger. If that's not enough for these girls. But you can imagine, so you think half the country is under 18 years old. And these girls go to school. Many schools, I'm talking most schools, do not have running water. They do not have wells. These schools that have 1,000, 1,200 kids, 100 kids to a classroom, they're going to those open pits for their water. We've drilled, like I said, 1,100 wells over the last 15 years, and we get all of the village profiles, the photos of the kids drinking water, and the kids are in their uniform collecting water from pits that you wouldn't even let your dog step in, let alone drink. And those girls, when they've reached puberty and they don't have a way to manage their menstrual cycle hygienically and with dignity, those girls in those schools, they stay home a week every month because they have no way to properly clean themselves. They're faced with discomfort, embarrassment, shame, they're ridiculed. I mean, if it is a really hard life being brought up as a girl in Uganda. They're also raped on the way to the water sources. They're violated and things like that. And then what happens is when you start missing your school lessons, and then maybe a week out of the month, maybe you stay back, it's just harder to keep going back to school. And they kind of fall farther and farther behind until they just drop out. And based on the national censuses of Uganda, you can clearly see the maps where areas that don't have access to clean water, girls are succumb to child marriage from 10 to 19 years old in areas that's up to 20%. So, when we can keep girls in school and get an education, quality education, they all have dreams just like us. They want to be nurses, they want to be doctors, they want to be meteorologists. They have all these, all kinds of dreams, teachers. But when we can keep them in school, they're not going to fall into, the early child marriage. Drilling a well, providing clean, safe water can restore a community instantly with health benefits, right? They won't get malaria or dysentery. Kids won't be able to, they won't fall into the dirty ponds. A lot of children end up actually drowning because nobody, they don't know how to swim. But installing a deep water well can provide clean water to communities for 30 to 50 years. And I usually say drilling a well is the easiest part of my job because it's teaching people how to drink clean water. And we don't have anything in our Western mindset to understand what it's like not having access to clean water. So you can imagine if a family had just a little open spring near their home, and they've been going to this spring for, generations, and you tell them, oh, we have a clean water, a kilometer away. We have to teach them that value of walking to that clean borehole. They do not know the water is filled with deadly diseases. I had a little mayor of a community tell me, thank you for teaching us these things. We didn't know the water was killing us. All of our parents died of the tsetse fly, and we had to raise ourselves. So we have to teach people. My Hope4Kids team in Uganda, we've got about 13 people on staff that just directly oversee our water well drilling program. And they'll say, don't go to Egypt, go to Canaan. This water is no longer for you. So we teach them about hygiene and sanitation. We bring lots of glitter with us. And when we gather the community around to open up a well and bless it in the name of Jesus, we also teach all the kids in the community about hygiene and deadly diseases with glitter. When you get glitter on yourself, it only comes off with soap and water. So we teach them about invisible things that's killing them. We also teach them how to take care of their well. Having that ownership piece over their well, not that this is our well or our Hope4Kids well, but this is the community's well, and they are tasked to take care of it. So we set up a water usage committee in every single community. There's about 10 positions, somebody to oversee children's rights, women's rights. There's a chairman, a secretary, a treasurer, someone to take care of the venue. They decide the rules and hours of operation. They keep it safe. They even, while they don't charge for the water, they do collect just 30 cents or so here and there from every family so they can properly take care of it, like get the grease to the chain and maybe replace bearings and things like that. They are tasked to oversee the well. And we even have them donate a piece of land where the well will be drilled. Because we get that question asked often. Well, what if someone takes over the well and starts charging? Nope, they can't do that because we have somebody in the community that actually donates a piece of land where the well will be located, and they exchange the title. Sometimes people won't know how to write their name, and it's so interesting. They'll get a blade of grass and go over their thumbprint, and they'll put the grass stain of their thumbprint where their signature is. And so they'll get a copy of the title or office and everything. It's very, very official. But in this way, everybody knows it's in the name of the community. And yes, ma'am.
Is there a problem finding water and a person who owns the land who was willing to deed that?
That's a great question. You know what? My project manager, I've had the pleasure of working with Pastor Hillary Mello in Uganda. He's a national. We say we had 1,000 problems, but we've had 1,000 victories. And sometimes in the field, it's dealing with those sorts of things. But we've had every community donate a piece of land.
So there is plentiful water.
Yes, actually, the most ironic thing is there's a lot of water in Uganda. Just, they've got springs and stuff, but to find safe water, we typically go down about 120 feet, 100 feet to install a deep water well. Deeper is not always better. That's one of the misconceptions about drilling wells. But as long as you go into the second aquifer, the first one's called the phreatic aquifer. That's the overburdened water. That's where all the contaminants come in. That's the seasonal water. That's going to dry up and have all the contaminants. But we go down into the second aquifer and use all the highest quality installation materials. That decides if a well is going to be open, 3 years or 30 to 50 years, the quality of your installation materials. We do all the testing for all the wells. So while there is a lot of water in Uganda, there's also a lot of areas that do not have water, which means there's not a aquifer underneath their community that yields enough water to install a hand pump or a borehole or a well. Those are all synonymous. And so we do hydrology testing in all the areas. And one of my favorite things about our program that really sets us apart from other organizations is that we negotiate for water with our drillers. So while we'll try and really reach those communities that are truly suffering, that do not have access to water. In fact, the government's told them, you people don't even have hope, there's no water in your community. We have the boldness and confidence to go ahead and try, and if we end up hitting a dry hole, which is about 3% of all the wells that we drill annually, our drillers will actually change it out and transfer it to another village that's registered in our Hope4Kids program for free. That's unheard of in a developing country. But we've had the liberty and the blessing to work with our drillers for 15 years. We know them by name, and we drill about 100, maybe a little over 100 wells a year. So we're constantly drilling. But that's one of my favorite things about our program, and why that's especially important is while it costs about $10,000 to drill a well, we'll never have to go to our donors and say, thank you so much for your donation, but we weren't able to find water. We can always tell our donors we found water, enough water to sustain a well with their generous donation. So well drilling, yes ma'am. I love all the questions.
Sorry.
No, no apologies.
How long does it take to drill a well, average?
Usually we're in the middle of a bunch of different drilling contracts, but when we finish, it just takes, like a month, really. Our team goes back into the village, probably anywhere from like 5 to 8 times. Each village, we take a complete water, a village assessment, so we learn about the community, what language they speak, the way we hear from them, how they've been suffering. We take pictures, which I think is very unique of children and families, where they get their daily water source. I mean, when we first saw that, and we saw babies, literally babies collecting water in this cloudy pit, I mean, it was alarming and shocking and stuff. And so we share the village assessments, those water source photos with our donors and partners, because we want to educate them on, this water crisis, especially what's happening in Uganda. And so we'll do the hydrology testing. They'll pick several points out in the village where the community feels would be the best place for a well. And then I have a team that oversees all of the drilling, all of the installation, all of the casting of the well. We've got an opening team, and so that probably takes, 3 weeks. I mean, we can get it done shorter, but usually we have about 8 or 10 on a contract. And so, yes, ma'am.
Do you use local people, local vendors?
Yes.
To do the construction and the
Yes.
building?
Everybody's a national. They're all Ugandans, and they are highly degreed, highly technical people. There are over actually, dozens and dozens of fake drillers in Uganda. That means they're not registered, they're borrowing somebody else's rig, whatever. And then you hear people, oh, they can do it a little bit cheaper. We only use registered drillers. They have their own rigs, which are also licensed. These guys, and we have different drillers that work in different areas. And most importantly is they have that experience. They know the topography. When you see those big, big granite boulders, that's the first sign that there's no water in an area. So they've got that experience and that history to know, oh, we tried to drill a well in this area, but there wasn't an aquifer. There's no water in this specific area. So using licensed drillers that you have that relationship with is really paramount to make sure that you're going to get a high quality well that's going to last for generations. And one of the things that really kind of stood out to me is, when we're teaching people to drink clean water, and they teach their children and their children's children, it will no longer be an option for them to go to a contaminated pit for their daily source of water. Just like it would never be an option for us. And then you've really changed the trajectory of that village forever. Forever. Drilling wells, bringing clean water to people is the most effective pre-evangelism thing that we do. When they get to experience the love of Jesus firsthand, it just brings everything, it's so real. And they say, we worship the one true living God. We had a political official stand up one time at a well dedication, and he was up there and he was taking credit for his well, about the well that we drilled. He was taking credit that he drilled it. And some village community member stands up and he goes, sit down, you didn't drill this well, God did. So God gets all of the credit for all these wells. We also hear that they'll say often, like, how did God find us in this tiny little village and connect us with, people in the States and things like that. In Uganda, there's also Muslim communities, which obviously we drill wells there too. Everybody's free to drink, but we do open up the wells in Jesus' name, and we pray over it. We invite everybody to come and drink. We share the gospel. In this one Muslim community named Shayuli, they said, we want to worship God where the water is. And they had this big mango tree, and they said, you must serve the one true living God, because the Muslims didn't drill a well for us, but the God of the Bible drilled a well for us. And so 48 people came to Christ from that one well, and their children, and they don't have a structure. We think of a church. They call, the church is the body. They call this a structure under which we can worship. And where they worship is under a big mango tree, which is right by the water. So you can see the water impacts every area of their life. They'll say, water is life, because it just is the beginning and the source of everything. Yeah. This Tina?
I got to talk to Angie a little bit before y'all came. I'm so impressed with the organization and the processes. You've given us such great detail, particularly quality assurance on testing the water, on teaching the water. And Larry and I just retired from ASU a few years ago. And while we were both there, we taught, of course, on international health. together. It was team taught, and Larry did the water part.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But I have been praying about how through the church or through an NGO, one could get more involved as it speaks oxygen all the time, you know. And I've learned in this little journey I've been on, our church has been involved with water, but it's delivering water bottles to Navajos, isn't that right, Sharon? And that's certainly part of it, that kind of systemic change. So I tried to find out more about, it's the Navajos here in Arizona, 30% do not have water. So I thought, we're telling them to go wash their hands, you know, for a length of time, and they don't have clean water. So I'm very interested in your learning more about your organization.
Thank you.
And I don't know, I guess Larry could say this is a worldwide issue, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, worldwide. It's it's about 3,000 children die every day of not having access to clean water. I mean, that is a headline,
Yeah,
but we never hear anything about it.
right.
Sometimes we've heard, well, that's just Africa, you know.
Well, this is fabulous. And your founder, what is his name?
Our founder of Hope4Kids is named Tom Egham.
Okay,
Yeah.
Is he an engineer? Does he have a
No,
special-
he's a pastor. He is a pastor. He does speak at churches around the country. We have many people. We have about 200 people that travel with us from different churches or individuals coming with us to our international projects. We do similar type of work in Namibia, Africa, Romania, the Philippines, Mexico, Nepal, sometimes India, but the heart of everything, or the fullness of our ministry, is in Uganda. And we are a registered NGO there, which is one of the areas that I also oversee. And we have about 114 employees, 13 dedicated just to water, and most of my team for water, they're all pastors. So they have just a higher level understanding. They have the heart for the communities. Even when people are being difficult, like you asked, well, what if someone doesn't donate a piece of land? They've got that patience, and our drillers pray before they, start drilling. I mean, it's just a beautiful, beautiful program, how it all just kind of works, together. And I'm so proud of my team. I would put my team up against any team in the world, honestly, for just their faithfulness and their dedication, their commitment to the resolve. And
Andy, you've been there about 15 years?
17, 18 in June. I can't believe it. Time goes by. So,
Thank you for your service.
yeah, thank you. Does anybody have any other questions I can answer for you? Yes, ma'am.
Just probably, why Uganda? What prompted your group to choose Uganda?
Our pastor Tom got invited to a pastor's conference, this was in 2002. Our ministry at that time was in the red, and so he's like, no, I'm like busy. I'm traveling here for something else, and he got invited, and he kind of like relented and was like, okay, I'll say 3 days, in Uganda, the pastor's conference. He got there, and the pastor's conference was in a shack, and I mean a shack. And the bishop at the time said, you must be a man of great faith, because when they worshiped, the shack would go to the left, and then the shack would go to the right. If you've ever seen Africans worship, they're standing up and dancing and praising God. And he noticed there were dozens of children in the front, orphans who had lost both of their parents, many to HIV/AIDS, and they were worshiping in the spirit, tears streaming down. This wasn't imitating. They were giving God all the glory, and they'd already lived a lifetime of suffering. So he said, give me the names and information of 100 kids, and I'll come back and see if I can get them sponsored. And maybe someday, maybe in 5 years, I can come back and maybe, build a medical clinic. And since then, we built this 2,000-person church. That health clinic became a hospital. Those children became registered. We've had over, I think, 20,000 children come through our child sponsorship program. And then for those of us that have been going to Uganda for 17, 20 years, these children are so intelligent. They have degrees. We have doctors that have come through our child sponsorship program, attorneys. We had a couple, two IT guys that worked for our organization that were child sponsors, even our executive director. I mean, most of our staff were sponsored kids at one time. And so, you know, it's just a beautiful blessing to see how a little bit of help and support can go a long way. But because Uganda is ranked, you know, number 3 in the world for the lack of clean drinking water and the worst quality of water to drink, it was just like a perfect fit for us. They also speak English. English is one of their languages, and so while they all have their tribal language that they speak, they all speak English because it was a British colony, so their English is very formal. It's actually better than ours. So all those beautiful things, everybody forms these deep, wonderful relationships. And so we have trips, 3 to 5 trips annually to Uganda, maybe even more sometimes. This year I think we're going to have 6 actually. And people from all over the country come with us, and some of them come annually, if not 2 times a year, because one, it's the greatest return on their investment. They can see it. It's become personal to them. They can see how their generous gifts have been used, but also the people, this love, this beautiful faith that they have. It's the people that they keep on returning, and these beautiful friendships that people get to know and love our staff and the people that they help.